Guys, I've been really enjoying this book review with my friend Keith Giles regarding his book, Jesus, Undefeated. Thanks for tuning in. We're talking about chapter 3. Keith, round 4. Let's talk about chapter 3 if you don't mind. I'm just
Oh yeah.
loving your I'm loving your book. It just keeps going. So this chapter is on contrasting views of hell. And I think you did a brilliant job of doing that. Could you just kind of maybe lay out a little bit of what
Yeah.
really the content or the meat and potatoes behind this chapter?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I did was, we've already established that there were three views historically and all of that. So jumping into chapter 3, what I wanted to do was say, look, let's just do a brief overview in this particular chapter.
Yeah,
As in later chapters, we're going to get really, really deep into each one of the three. I'm going to devote
right.
an entire chapter to each one individually. But let's just do one as sort of an overview of what's coming up. And let's just say, so to get in our heads that yes, there's three views. And so what I do is I say, here's eternal torment.
Right.
And I just summarize the view in general. What does the view say? What are some assumptions made about God and about Scripture that back up that view? And then I'll even list historically, who are some early church fathers that embraced that view? Because again, I'm not saying that none did. I'm just saying the majority were
Didn't.
not
Yeah.
eternal torment or annihilation.
And
And then,
one
yeah, I'll look at
what
that.
one
Go
of
ahead.
the things you did is you also listed scriptures. I just love in these Facebook wars when people post scriptures as if you've never ever read it. And
Right.
you're actually honest, like, hey, here's a verse that seemingly does say that.
Yeah.
And that was great to read,
Well,
like, wow, he just came right out with it.
right. Oh, yeah. I'm not afraid of those. Of course, like I can't write this book and not acknowledge, yes, if you believe eternal torment, I think I put, and of course, there's a lot more than this, but I just picked these are the major ones that you're having
Yeah.
conversation.
You got the
Matthew
real
25,
clobber ones.
yeah,
Yeah.
Matthew 25, 41 through 46, Mark 9, 43, 2 Thessalonians 1, 9, Revelation 14, 10, 19, 20, 20, 10. And then, summary of those and assumptions of those. And
Hmm.
again, just here, the other reason why it's important to do that is that usually when I talk about universalism, people get the wrong picture in their head of what that is. So I wanted to make sure I fairly explained all three views, but I really wanted to make sure that I explain to people what universalism is not and what
Right.
it is, because still a Christ-centered universalism.
Right. And you,
Um,
you
yeah,
You touched on that beautifully, and then you talk about annihilation or conditional immortality, which is probably not a very common view. I feel like in today's evangelicalism, but then you really do outline a lot of scripture, a lot of beautiful passages that draw our attention to the universal reconciliation um, of Jesus. So I just thought it was really great. Now there was a statement I thought it was funny, a little comical, that you said you you're we've heard this term before when people say, well, Jesus taught more about hell than he taught about heaven. He
yeah,
mentioned hell more than he mentioned love, and you kind of addressed that. It was really funny.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I did a blog post on that recently too, because somebody brought that up again. It's a very common thing. And look, I'll be honest, I used to say that myself. Um, but it's one of these things where that's why I had to write the book, because what I want to point out to people is yes and no. Like, yes, Jesus uses that kind of language. He says things like,
Right.
where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched, and the smoke rises forever and ever. And yes,
Yeah.
yes, he does talk about these
Depart from
things.
me, I never knew you.
Yes, exactly. Depart from me, never knew
Doers of
you.
iniquity.
Yeah, away
Yeah.
from me, you evildoers, and do eternal
Yeah.
torment or
Just
eternal.
real flowery language
Yeah,
that he just throws in
and
there.
again, I want to acknowledge that yes, he does use that kind of language. But what I want people to understand is um, there's something different than just saying those words are in the English Bible. Yes, they are.
Right.
But do you understand them? Do you understand what Jesus is really
who,
saying?
who
And
would have
I
thought?
want us to have understanding about that, right?
Exactly. Who would have thought that you might actually want to study what he meant by those words, not just the words
Right.
themselves? Yeah.
And even if nothing else, and I do also point this out in the book too, that yes, there's three views, and the thing about it is all three views are biblical. All three views have scriptural support, and no matter which view again you embrace, you can say, well, here are the verses I base my view on, right? Whatever
Right.
my view is. And then someone from the other two views is always going to be able to come back to you and say, but what about this verse?
Right.
And it's sort of like, well, I can explain it, I can answer that verse or those couple of verses, but if you're committed to that view, you're probably not going to like my explanation, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's true. I don't think of any view you have it's the truth.
Yeah.
If you're convinced of your view, you think, well, no, I've got 5 verses that prove my point, and someone goes, well, what about this verse or that verse? And you're just going to have to find a way to either downplay it or explain it away, or at least in your mind explain it. And the other person's probably not going to be happy. But then they've got 5 verses. They're going to say, what about these? And then
Right.
you're going to come back and go, but what about this one?
Uh,
And it's but again, we've been doing this again from the beginning.
yeah.
The Christian church wrestled with this for the
This
first
is
500 years,
not new.
and it's
Yeah.
it's still going on, right?
Right. Interesting the way we use a sacred, beautiful text to boost our own egotistical perspectives and
Right.
confirm our own biases.
Yeah.
but but I just want to encourage people to pick it up because they can read it for themselves and really enjoy the contrasting of those views. And I loved your honesty about the scriptures and about the different views. So
Yeah. Thanks, man.
thank you for
Appreciate it.
chapter 3, and I'm sure we'll do another video about chapter 4 soon.
Yeah. If people can handle it, I think we should keep going.
Let's do it. Let's
All
do
right.
it.
Thanks.